Part 92. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 916. This base has been stabilized, and the other three have been stabilized. After Wang Ling felt relieved, he took a look at the electronic map, only to find that the other three battlefields were still in a stalemate, and it seemed that the outcome could not be determined in a short time. This situation also made Wang Ling quite dissatisfied. He spat and then directly ordered, "Dehua, you lead the wolf group to continue to annihilate this Yuri base. After completing the mission, go to reinforce the allied positions." Huh? How come it's the allies? Sun Dehua had just discharged electricity to bomb a tank bunker. He was confused after hearing the order. Wang Ling said contemptuously, "I'll go in the direction of the Eagle group. Do you still want to fight with me?" He, no, 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 the daylilies will be cold when we go there, screw you, team leader, Sun Dehua giggled, which made several black lines fall on Wang Ling's forehead. But he didn't have time to bicker here. He turned around and moved a few times, quickly approaching the Eagle group's front line in the southeast corner. This Yuri base is a few minutes closer to the coalition base, but the Eagle group's attack here is very slow. Chen Tong, based on the principle of prudence, is still sending armed helicopters to bomb from a long distance. Of course, it has destroyed Yuri. The defensive building at the entrance of the base also killed a group of Yuri guards, but now the entire Eagle group cannot even penetrate the entrance of the Yuri base. On the other hand, on the Wolf group front, the battle was coming to an end. All the major units were vying for combat experience. It was about to end. In contrast, Wang Ling couldn't help but feel a little anxious. After the time and space moved here and the stiff time ended, Wang Ling couldn't help complaining, "Chen Tong, what are you doing? Why are there such ink stains?" "On the contrary," Chen Tong said with disdain, "I can't compare with you, a pervert. Do you think any field team can open the way with your kind of fighting ability?" Wang Ling was speechless for a while. Boom, boom, boom. Boom boom boom. While the two were talking, the armed helicopter in the front row was still firing continuously, consuming it from a distance, and gradually advancing. When the last few shells hit the edge garrison positions of Yuri's troops, the Yuri guards in this area became anxious and mobilized collectively to attack. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. But what greeted them was Wang Ling's long-range shooting. With the exaggerated rate of fire and power, the guards were swept away not long after they rushed out of the base. All the infantry died tragically, and all the tanks exploded. It was not at all like this. One enemy. Whoosh. Wang Ling was not satisfied with killing these guards. Without saying hello to Chen Tong, he rushed forward with a quick movement through time and space. When he came to the entrance of Yuri's base, he picked up his rifle and fired rapidly. Under his targeted fire, all the virus snipers within the range of fire were instantly killed, and the magneto-electric tanks also exploded. Even the mind-controlled vehicles suffered from his poisonous hands and exploded one after another. Finally, nearly 20 laser UFOs suspended above the base were also alerted and rushed towards Wang Ling. Charge! However, at this point in Wang Ling's battle, Chen Tong had already understood what he meant. With an order, the Ying group's large forces also launched a fierce attack. Many anti-aircraft crawlers rushed forward, protecting Wang Ling's surroundings and bombarding them fiercely. Laser UFO. Even the armed helicopters took off and attacked the laser UFOs in the air. With the combined efforts of the two arms and Wang Ling's artillery attack, all the laser UFOs failed to reach Wang Ling and were all shot down. Then, there was a fierce attack that was as unique as a wolf forming a position. The Eagle team's combat effectiveness was not weak either, but it lacked Wang Ling's strongest firepower and was outnumbered by the wolf team in every aspect. Now that Wang Ling is here to help, what else is there to worry about? Just hit it and that's it? Rumble. Rumble. Wang Ling eliminated the strongest threat in advance, and the remaining troops opened and closed during the attack. The sound of artillery fire resounded all the way, and everything they passed along the way was in a state of destruction. Of course, the mind control tower is still a threat, and the troops still have to avoid it when attacking. The armed helicopters from behind must blow it up in advance to allow normal passage. During this period, Wang Ling quickly fired, wiping out all the threatening Yuri troops, and then converted into superdimensional Space Legion soldiers, and successively wiped out the tank factory, command post, and psychic detector of Yuri base, followed by break into the surrounding mines and wipe out all the slave mines. After all his targets disappeared, the Battle of the Eagle Group had almost entered its final stage. All major forces were sparing no effort to gain combat experience and destroy the remaining troops and buildings in Yuri's base. The Wolf Group troops have ended the battle and are now on their way to Yuri's base in the northwest corner. Not only the coalition forces, but also the allied forces, the battle line in the southwest corner has almost come to an end. All major forces are chasing the remaining Yuri troops and pushing across major buildings. During the observation period, Wang Ling also paid special attention to the battle fortress. There are 5 battle fortresses in this field group, and these 5 fortresses are all filled with heavily armed soldiers. A total of 25 heavily armed soldiers were hiding in the battle fortress, and they were furiously bombarding all the laser UFOs and tanks within the range. However, their range was particularly long, and all the tanks and UFOs that were targeted by them fled. However, the armored troops at Yuri base suffered enough from the fate of being bombarded. This can be regarded as an offensive strategy. The Allies' air defense efficiency is relatively weak. Although the heavy soldiers have strong air defense capabilities, their movement speed is too slow after all. However, Agent Tanya actually packed all such units into the battle fortress, which makes up for its movement speed problem and also fills in the Allied air defense shortcomings. Tisk tisk, Tanya is a bitch who is quite flexible in using troops. She must have never been exposed to a battle fortress before, right? Seeing this, Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh. At the Yuri base in the southwest corner, Kirov airships took the lead and destroyed the Yuri base at the cost of total destruction. Subsequently, they were attacked by Prism tanks, including battle fortresses and other infantry tank support. Basically, there was no problem. Only the finishing touches remain. However, there was a stalemate at the front line at Yuri base in the northwest corner. Agent Tanya did not evenly distribute her troops into the 2 field groups. The strongest firepower from the Allied base was gathered at the southwest corner front, but there were not many decent troops at the northwest corner front. Rather than attacking Yuri's base, it would be better to say that they were containing it. After the southwest corner of the front ended, the 2 field groups gathered together for a general attack. TCH, I really don't mind the trouble. Wang Ling shook his head, not wanting to see this kind of fighting style. After complaining, he turned around and moved through time and space to join the Wolf Group troops. However, before he could meet with Sundahu and others, dozens of laser UFOs poured in from several directions outside the war zone, followed by hundreds of armored units, moving at different speeds. Entering a war zone. The reinforcements called by Yuri base finally arrived in large numbers at this juncture. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 917. Relying on the spiritual beacon before, although the 4 Yuri bases were nervous, they were not too panicked, and the call for reinforcements was not too strong. However, with the explosion of the psychic beacon and the final support being eliminated, the 4 commanders completely changed their expressions and called for rescue again and again. But it will take some time for the reinforcements to arrive. During this period of time, the coalition and allied forces launched a large-scale attack, and 3 of the 4 major bases have been destroyed. Fortunately, there was still one last base worth rescuing. After observing the situation, the reinforcements from the Mind Empire who arrived here moved closer to Yuri's base in the northwest corner, trying to defend the base. It's interesting. When Wang Ling saw this scene, he stopped moving across time and space and contacted by radio, "Tanya, our coalition forces stopped these reinforcements for you. The remaining Yuri base was originally your responsibility, leave it to you." Solved. Agent Tanya agreed very happily, "Okay, I'm just waiting for your words. I was afraid that you would steal from me." "Oh, don't say it. If Yuri's reinforcements hadn't come, I would have fought against you. But don't be too complacent. Watch the time carefully. Before the psychic storm is ready, be sure to blind the space and try your best to provide it with peace of mind. Got it? Don't worry, I'm more concerned about time than you are. The remaining time is enough to deal with the space." Good. After confirming the next strategy in a few words, Wang Ling turned to a time travel movement and caught up with the Wolf Group's troops. After he recovered from his stiffness, he took Sun Dehu out of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle and informed him of the next battle target. At the same time, Chen Tong was notified on the radio. Then the large force of the Wolf Group moved towards the northwest corner near Yuri's base, blocking the only way for Yuri's reinforcements to pass. At this time, the Eagle Group had also ended the battle. Under Wang Ling's signal, they moved towards Yuri's reinforcement route in the other direction. At the same time, the two major allied field groups finally successfully reunited and began a general attack on the last Yuri base. Swish swish. Swish swish. The main attacking force was naturally the Prism tank. Dozens of Prism tanks worked together to destroy the building at the entrance to Yuri's base almost instantly, killing a large area of nearby guards. The connected Prism rays were combined into various exquisite structures. The pattern is dazzling. But under this dazzling light, it carried extremely powerful destructive power, and a huge gap was torn open in the entrance defense line in a short period of time. It's no wonder that in this game, many novices like to build swarms of light tanks to attack cities. It is really convenient and powerful to unleash such power from a long distance. Of course, Yuri's base was not willing to be breached like this, and what followed was a large number of armored troops breaking out. Dong 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 dong. Tweet, tweet, tweet. However, the 5 battle fortresses took the opportunity to show off their power, and a large number of missiles shot out, quickly destroying these armored troops from a long distance. After they reluctantly approached, the Phantom tanks also opened fire, and the Grizzly tanks followed behind. And heavy infantry firepower. The war between the two sides has already begun. Although there is no fire suppression by Wang Ling, Agent Tanya is not simple after all. With the destructive power of swarms of light tanks, it is only a matter of time before they can conquer the entire Yuri base. During this period, the Seoul Empire's reinforcements finally arrived nearby. Wang Ling quickly commanded the Wolf Group troops to launch an interception. A large number of anti-aircraft tracked vehicles intercepted the laser UFO, armed helicopters, Apocalypse tanks, Grizzly tanks, Phantom tanks, and a group of the infantrymen used all their strength to assist in the defense and block the ground troops. Coupled with Wang Ling's shooting, under this powerful firepower, the originally menacing reinforcements of the Seoul Empire disappeared quickly like snow meeting the blazing sun. Not to be outdone, the Eagle Group intercepted the reinforcements of the Mind Empire from another direction halfway through their hasty march. They bit them and beat them hard, catching their opponents off guard. Swish swish swish. Swish swish swish. Boom. 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 While the coalition forces were blocking the reinforcements from the Mind Empire, the two field groups of the Allied forces were already firing on all cylinders, and they invaded the interior of Yuri's base. They launched a massive bombardment, pushing through many buildings and wiping out many guards. Not long after the war started, the entire Yuri base was severely damaged. Swish, swish, swish. Boom. Under such bombardment, its command post was also exploded by this exaggerated light prism connection, and then even the tank factory and the psychic detector also exploded in response. At this point in the battle, all the psychic detectors at the 4 major bases had been deactivated, and the electronic map of the psychic empire in the Arctic war zone had finally become blind. The super weapons of the 3 major forces are certainly a great threat, but to release these super weapons, you need a clear target, and you need to select a clear location on the electronic map before you can release them, and the Empire of the Mind is no exception. And the electronic map of the Northern Icefield war zone was blinded, and the entire Soul Empire lost the pictures and information of this war zone. Even if the super weapon Psychic Storm was ready, no matter how much it wanted to be released here, the Soul Empire could not catch it. Target. Good. Observing this battle situation, General Lewicki, who was far away in the coalition base, couldn't help but cheer. Agent Tanya, however, was relatively settled. By now, the outcome of the battle was a foregone conclusion. She no longer urged the troops to fight quickly. Instead, she settled down and ordered the troops to advance slowly to minimize the number of casualties among her own troops. On this basis, the entire Yuri base will be wiped out. Wang Ling didn't care what her tactics were, and was still directing the Wolf Group to stop these reinforcements. As for the reinforcements, the bases they wanted to support had collapsed, which directly affected their fighting momentum and reduced their combat effectiveness. Wang Ling and Chen Tong seized the opportunity and directly counterattacked. It didn't take long for them to wipe out all the reinforcements. Wipe out. Not long after, the Allied forces also killed the last slave mine and destroyed the base. So far, all 4 Yuri bases have been destroyed, all Yuri troops in the Northern Icefield Theater have disappeared, and the entire theater has finally been successfully recovered. Win beautifully. For this reason, General Lewicki actually turned on the radio of the entire army and shouted, "Haha, I won. Oh. Oh." This shout also directly aroused the atmosphere of the 2 field groups. Almost all the infantry started shouting, and even the Allied forces were affected and cheered. Damn it! The Arctic war zone is gone. Even the psychic beacon has been destroyed. The 2 armies cheered, but Yuri himself, thousands of miles away at the headquarters of the Mind Empire, was extremely indignant. Below him, a group of generals and ministers were waiting, all trembling, but one of them responded calmly, "Chief, we failed to keep Wang Ling, and we failed to kill him in time to let him return to the coalition forces. We have already let the tiger return to the mountains. And he seems to be a bit stronger than before. With his leadership, it is already an established fact that the Arctic theater will fail." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 918. The person who spoke was standing on the levitator, with a gloomy expression that was the same as Yuri's. If Wang Ling were here, he would definitely be able to recognize him at a glance. He turned out to be Yuri X. To be precise, it should be a copy of Yuri X after all. He was killed by Wang Ling when he was in the Russian branch. However, although he is a clone in name, in fact he has almost the same abilities as his original self, and their natural status is almost the same. As a hero-level unit of the Mind Empire, the Yuri, frankly speaking, no other general would have the guts to do this. And Yuri's anger didn't spread on him. He took a few deep breaths, barely suppressed it, and then asked, "Let's talk about it. Is there any way to deal with Wang Ling specifically?" When he learned that Wang Ling was a huge threat to the Mind Empire, Yuri himself asked the same question here. Some people suggested using special weapons to trap Wang Ling, but some people thought it was a pity to kill Wang Ling like this. In the end, it was Yuri himself who had the idea of loving talents, guided everyone, and spent some time to come up with the method of forcibly controlling Wang Ling. But now that this question is asked again, everyone at the scene is having a headache. After being silent for a while, a general said, "Before, we could control Wang Ling by design, but now Wang Ling's mental power, except for the leader, is no longer inferior to us. It can be said that he has reached the level of control over the soul. To control absolute immunity, the previous methods can no longer be used." Another general took the opportunity to sarcastically say, "Aren't you talking nonsense? Bringing up old matters again, could it be that the clone of the strange leader was specially trained by Wang Ling? Absurd. I didn't mean that. I was just stating a fact. I didn't blame anyone. Stop it." The two generals of the Soul Empire had a disagreement and seemed to be about to quarrel, which made Yuri's face become even more ugly. It was the clone of Yuri. The two generals became silent for a moment, and the other generals also fell silent. After Yuri adjusted himself for a while and his expression softened slightly, the other generals dared to speak out. Not long after, another general suggested, "Wang Ling's ability can overcome the military technology of our Soul Empire. Only the laser UFO can pose an effective threat to him. In my opinion, good steel is used on the blade. In whichever war zone Wang Ling appears next, we will gather hundreds of laser UFOs, and with a number several times greater than the coalition's anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, we will forcefully break through and kill Wang Ling." Hundreds of ships? Haha, you are really joking. These hundreds of laser UFOs will drain the combat funds of how many bases we have. This is just a temporary measure. If we can kill Wang Ling, everything will be worth it. But, can you really kill him? As you can see from the video in the Northern Icefield War Zone, after Wang Ling returned, he had new military capabilities, and he was still the most difficult Chrono Legion soldier. He can do it at any time, move elsewhere to avoid the attack, and you can even leave the battlefield at any time to save your life. Even hundreds of laser UFOs can only break through his base at best, but they can't kill Wang Ling at all. What's the value of his coalition base? We want to kill him, it's Wang Ling. Oh, damn it, why are the coalition and allied forces so disobedient? Isn't it good to be controlled obediently? They even want to unite to fight against each other even if they exchange such core military technology. There is no need to say such depressing words. The coalition and allied forces are going to capture you. Will you be happy? Stop arguing. Who has any ideas to deal with Wang Ling? A group of generals, ministers, and even the clone of Yuri. But what is embarrassing is that Wang Ling has grown to this point. Many generals and ministers have discussed it for a long time, but there is still no sure way to eliminate Wang Ling. In the end, they came to a conclusion that made them all ashamed. Wang Ling has now become a climate, and there is no way to eliminate him. Can't kill, can only contain. Good guy, if you say this conclusion in front of Yuri, the scene will be extremely embarrassing and tense. Huh, what a bunch of trash. Yuri, who had listened to the whole discussion, was so angry that he stopped everyone with a loud yell. After a few heavy breaths, Yuri finally made a decision. Wang Ling cannot be killed, and there are uncontrollable variables on the road to controlling the world, which will inevitably affect our plan. Instead of watching the plan collapse, it is better to take the initiative, give up part of it and adopt the second strategy. Even if it takes a little more time, it is worse than failure. Upon hearing this second strategy, many generals and ministers at the scene frowned, and the Yuri snorted coldly, "If you don't do this, you can come up with a way to deal with Wang Ling." Yuri X suddenly became silent. Another general reminded, "But leader, the core of the second strategy, the spiritual beacon of the Russian branch, has been destroyed by Wang Ling. This spiritual beacon plays a decisive role. The parameters are copied. There is also reconstruction, which will take a long time. Then speed up the reconstruction for me." It seems that Yuri is determined to implement this second strategy. Yes, leader, everyone had no choice but to respond. The strategy was finally decided. Yuri closed his eyes and was silent for a while, then asked, by the way, where is Wang Ling's next attack zone? The answer was Yuri. Except for the northern icefield war zone. Wang Ling personally helped us conquer more than a dozen war zones and establish more than a dozen psychic beacons. These psychic beacons are probably his next goals. Now they are still in the northern icefield war zone. It is expected that next time one destination will be the Baiguan war zone, the next one will be the Nakado war zone, and so on. This is not possible. Yuri squinted his eyes with a fierce look. The outer psychic beacon is just a gift to them. Just try to delay it as long as possible, but the inner psychic beacon is related to the second strategy. There is no room for error. Chief, if Wang Ling really attacks, there's nothing we can do except use some strategies to force him to change his route. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 919. By mixing multiple types of soldiers together and growing to this point, Wang Ling has become a serious threat to the Soul Empire. However, he has also destroyed the balance of the game world and is so powerful that even the Soul Empire is helpless. However, there is a saying that goes well: a dog will jump over the wall when it is anxious, and a rabbit will bite when it is anxious. The threat posed by Wang Ling is so great that the Mind Empire has already had extreme ideas, and has discussed this in the form of a high-level meeting. For a long time. But as the person who prompted the emergence of this extreme strategy, Wang Ling did not know that the Soul Empire had already discussed his threat. He was still in the Arctic War Zone, watching the cheers of the soldiers of the two armies. Whether it is General Li Wiki's base or Agent Tanya's base, as the trump card base of the two armies, there have been many records of victory in conquering cities and territories these days, and many people have actually become accustomed to it. However, this battle is of great significance. Due to Wang Ling's return, the top leaders of the two armies have used him as a sharp edge to counterattack, and gradually began to regain the lost positions in the past and destroy the spiritual beacon of the spiritual empire. This northern icefield theater was the first battle of their counterattack. It was a good start, and the soldiers and even the two commanders were inevitably very happy. However, Wang Ling didn't care too much. He looked at them with a smile for a while and then stopped and said, "Okay, don't be too arrogant. This is just the beginning. There will be more and more victories waiting for you in the future." Sun Dehu didn't show any respect at all, and instead made fun of him. "Team leader, you told us not to play harp, but why do I feel that you are the most harp?" "Ha ha ha, that's right. The team leader is floating. What a shame, the team leader is so domineering and confident. Cut. Dot." A group of people started laughing and laughing, making Wang Ling dumbfounded. This battle was originally a forceful attack in the dark. By now, it was already half of the night. After fighting all night, Wang Ling was indeed sleepy. After yawning and ordering the troops to return to the base, he turned around and moved through time and space to the coalition base. He greeted General Li Wiki, got into the temporary command post and fell asleep. Before going to bed, Wang Ling still habitually returned to the real world to overcome the fatigue of the day in the game world. In the real world, everything is as normal, as calm as a pool of stagnant water. Even if you throw a boulder, it won't make many waves. It is said that life is not easy and things are unpredictable, but Wang Ling's life in the real world is stable and prosperous. Regardless of the storms in the future, at least he is living quite comfortably now. This day, it is still the same. Xiao He was lazily eating snacks in the kennel, and would get a glass of water for himself from time to time. His roommate Wei Bowen was busy playing games. Wang Ling rested on the bed for a long time. Finally, he couldn't bear the itching of his hands, so he turned on the computer and clicked. A red alert was issued. Speaking of which, Since the introduction of the different dimensional system, Wang Ling rarely plays Red Alert on the computer. Thinking about it, he really misses it. However, the embarrassing thing is that Wang Ling is used to the convenience and personal combat in the Red Alert world. When he first started playing computer games, he couldn't adapt. Less than a minute after the game started, he was pushed aside by the computer. Well, is the game so difficult now? It happened that Wei Bowen also came here to get water. When he saw Wang Ling's computer game ended, he couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, Wang Ling, I'm not telling you, you are too good at picking your feet in the vegetable patch. You too, just because this is a computer game, if you really fight in Red Alert in person, you have to come up and make people collapse. Wang Ling twitched the corner of his mouth. Why don't you like hearing this so much? Ha ha ha, Uncle Hay also responded promptly, that's right, your roommate is right. You've really let the system spoil you now. You can't even play the prototype game of Red Alert World anymore. Wang Ling continued speechless. It's exactly what Uncle Hay said. The Red Alert World created by the system is not exactly the same as the prototype game. Once you are used to the rhythm of the Red Alert World, it feels a bit strange when you first come into contact with this game. However, Wang Ling did not admit defeat. He had nothing to do in the real world anyway, so he just started playing this game. He kept playing it all day long, and it was not until night that he gradually adapted to the rhythm of the game. After having a comfortable dinner and chatting with Wei Bowen for a while, Wang Ling continued to lie down and went to the Red Alert World. In this Red Alert World, Wang Ling took advantage of the convenience of traveling through time and space to return to the base early, but now the Wolf Group, the Eagle Group, and even the two major allied field groups are still on their way back. From the electronic map, we can see that seeing the hard work they put in, Wang Ling actually felt a little gloating about their misfortune. Of course, he has now experienced the convenience of the Chrono Legionnaires even more. He is thinking about how to brush up the experience of this unit to the level of the 10-star Soldier King in the next war zone, and unlock it in reality. With this idea in mind, Wang Ling fell into a drowsy sleep. The war zone was recovered, and the Soul Empire did not have that much power to come here to harass and die. Wang Ling slept very peacefully until dawn. After the war, the two bases did not immediately move their positions. They rested in the Arctic war zone for a whole day. After the troops from the two armies taking over the war zone arrived here, they continued to move to the battle. The transfer process is also quite long. Wang Ling does not have to stay in the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle like others. He also has a special temporary command post. Staying in it and marching can be quite comfortable. However, it was comfortable and a little boring at the same time. Out of curiosity, Wang Ling simply contacted General Li Wiki directly and asked, "General, where is our next goal?" General Li Wiki replied, "Our next target has something to do with you. It was the battle zone that you helped the Soul Empire defeat when you were controlled, Baiguan Station area." This Wang Ling was embarrassed for a moment. Speaking of which, when he was controlled by the Mind Empire, he helped conquer many war zones. Now it is his turn to repay the debt. All the war zones he conquered must be recovered one by one. Naturally, General Li Wiki didn't mean to blame him. Instead, he smiled and said, Tanya probably knows more about the specific war zone information than I do. Go and ask her." "Got it, General." After Wang Ling responded, he was not polite and moved directly to the Allied base vehicle through time and space and forced his way in. Based on his relationship with Tanya, Agent Tanya was not angry at being invaded by him. She just gave him a resentful look. "You didn't say hello before you came. Aren't you afraid that I was changing my clothes?" Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 920. Agent Tanya's words were extremely ambiguous. After hearing this, the two assistants looked a little weird. Wang Ling didn't care, and instead started teasing, "What am I afraid of? I won't suffer anyway. The worst I can do is let you watch it again. Oh, by the way, if you want to watch it, you have to watch it on my bed." Good guy. After being single for more than 20 years, this guy has learned to flirt when he is being shameless. "You are shameless." Agent Tanya was indeed a little angry. However, Wang Ling did not continue to light the fire. Instead, he went straight to the point and asked, "Are we going to the Baigwen war zone?" When it came to the main topic, Agent Tanya's expression finally returned to normal, and she mocked, "That's right, it was the war zone you conquered back then, and now it's your turn to recover it. God's way is reincarnation." Wang Ling was speechless. After Agent Tanya said something, she finally became serious and opened the electronic map. Of course, there was no air command center or spy satellites, so the electronic map of the Allies should have been completely dark, but she had reserved it in advance to use it as a direction and target. Pointing to one of the areas, Agent Tanya replied, "This is the Arctic war zone that we left not long ago. It has been recovered." Then, following that area, Agent Tanya continued to move to one side for a long time, and clicked on a dark map. "This is the Baigwen war zone. You should have personally witnessed the construction process of the psychic beacon in the war zone where you participated." That's true. Wang Ling laughed at himself, then ignored the warning glances of the two assistants, walked directly into the control panel, pointed at several places, and explained, "Not only did I witness the construction process of the spiritual beacon, but I also saw the development of the spiritual empire. The base stationing process. If their positions have not changed, the 5 bases will be stationed in these places. Nearly half of the map in the Baigwen war zone is desert, and the Seoul Empire occupies almost all the favorable positions in the border towns." Agent Tanya rolled her eyes. "Isn't it thanks to you? When we were on defense before, we even had the upper hand. Once you came, it was completely turned upside down. I admit that you are very strong, but when you were in the enemy camp, it's really annoying." Wang Ling pursed his lips. He didn't want to answer these words. Fortunately, Tanya didn't blame him too much. She took a deep breath and adjusted her emotions before saying, "The Allies attach great importance to the map. They have recorded the general appearance of this war zone in advance. The favorable positions are all occupied by the Empire of Mind. We can choose the desert area to build a base. There happen to be some suitable construction sites on the edge of this war zone, and that is our goal. However, after suffering the losses in the Arctic war zone, I estimate that the Seoul Empire has fully explored the map. It's over, will probably be discovered when we get there, and a fierce battle will inevitably happen. Fighting is inevitable. Our 2 bases have fought all the way. Are we still afraid of this?" Wang Ling joked. But Tanya rolled her eyes. "You said it's easy. You can be a hands-off shopkeeper and fight happily, and let Li Wiki take care of it for you. I still have to think about this and that. Are you tired?" Wang Ling spread his hands and said, "You can do it too. Didn't you have a general who helped you before? Why did you kick him out later?" "Forget it, since you were controlled, I no longer have this intention." Agent Tanya shook her head. She didn't say much of what happened next. In fact, she was also disappointed with the actions of the Allied forces at that time. Instead of letting other generals give her instructions, it would be better to lead the base herself. However, Wang Ling also made a good guess. Thinking of Agent Tanya's tears, he had an unspeakable feeling in his heart. They were obviously enemies, but why did they have such a bond with each other? Afterwards, the two casually exchanged a few words about the situation in the Baigwen station area, and Wang Ling returned to his temporary command post and waited peacefully. The Baigwen station area is not too far from the northern icefield war zone. Agent Tanya asked General Li Wiki to borrow some anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, plus his own helicopters and battle fortresses, which happened to carry all the infantry, and the speed was not too much hindered. The two bases marched back and forth for about a day and a half before arriving at the Bagwin station area. Following the general location of the electronic map in my impression, the two bases directly broke into the desert area and came to a relatively solid place. They established bases right next to them. The major troops also hurriedly got out of the car and deployed emergency defenses around them. In this new war zone, most of the exploration of the Sol Empire on the electronic map has been completed. Their arrival may have been observed by Yuri base. While the two bases have not been rebuilt, this attack should be inevitable. Before the attack, the two bases could only gain a foothold through rapid reconstruction. For this reason, the engineering troops of the two camps were extremely busy and worked hard to build. The two bases quickly built power plants, or refineries, tank factories, and several defensive buildings. However, before the two armies could restore their electronic maps, the attack from Yuri's base had already arrived. Due to the blindness of the electronic map, the specific lineup of the enemy army cannot be seen. Both armies are using the safest fighting method. Wang Ling also temporarily gave up the idea of gaining experience and switched to elite combat soldiers to cooperate with armed helicopters, focusing on take care of the ground troops. As for the laser UFO, it will be left to the air defense forces of the two armies to deal with it. The two bases are the ace bases of the two armies. Even if the base cannot be rebuilt, the combat effectiveness of its own soldiers and tanks is very strong, not to mention that both armies use the most reliable fighting methods. The Sol Empire originally wanted to take advantage of their failure to rebuild, so as to catch them off guard, but they encountered such a lineup, and a large number of troops attacked fiercely, but under the roar of artillery fire and continuous gunfire, all the attacking troops were unable to break through the outermost defense lines of the two armies, and one after another they fell to the guns of the two armies like moths to the flame. Swish. During their defensive operations, the bases of the two armies were constantly being rebuilt. While the war was in full swing, the coalition bases had already taken the lead in establishing radars and restoring basic electronic maps. On this electronic map, the visible range is very limited, but within this limited range, there are now several layers of purple dots surrounding them, rushing towards the positions of the two armies. Boom, boom, boom. Boom boom boom. Da 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 da. Intensify the firepower, don't let anyone go. However, the guards of the two armies were more fierce than the other. The sound of various artillery and gunshots resounded almost continuously, mixed with Wang Ling's shouts. It was like forming a solid golden barrier under the blocking attack. Like a bell jar, no matter how many Yuri troops there are, they can't break this circle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 921. Rumble. Rumble. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. Ta da da ta da da. Damn it, magneto tanks. And mind control vehicles. Team leader. Coming. The war is still going on. As for the Sol Empire, the 5 major bases have joined forces to launch several waves of offensives before the reconstruction of the coalition and allied bases has been completed. However, the troops of the two armies stood firmly on the periphery, blocking or even annihilating all the invading Yuri troops. The busiest among them is Wang Ling. There are indeed units in Yuri's army that pose a huge threat to the guards of both armies. These units are all Wang Ling's targets. When these units are not available, Wang Ling will shoot at them indiscriminately. However, wherever these units appear on the battle line, they will be killed. We'll call Wang Ling. Wang Ling relied on the convenience of traveling through time and space to reach the required position almost instantly. He used powerful firepower to quickly suppress these mind-controlled vehicles and magneto-electric tanks, minimizing the casualties of the guards at the two armies' positions. After killing the mind control vehicle in Erlu's position, Erlu seemed a little impatient. "Team leader, we just arrived, why are there just such batches of Yuri troops? How long will they have to fight?" Wang Ling sneered and said, "Beat them until their bodies hurt. Annihilate all their invading troops. They will be in pain in a short time. Continue to increase my firepower. Roar." All the soldiers shouted in unison and stepped up their firepower desperately to suppress all the invading Yuri troops. After all, they were facing attacks from the 5 major Yuri bases. This battle lasted a long time, and the defense lines of the two armies did not know how many groups of attacking Yuri troops were annihilated. Even with Wang Ling's targeted suppression, where would there be no sacrifices in war? Under the successive strong attacks, the defense lines of the two armies also suffered at least 20% casualties, which almost made the guards of these two positions red-eyed. Of course, the losses at Yuri's base were even greater, nearly 10 times that of the positions of the two armies. After the fierce battle until now, they were finally hurt. After the last batch of laser UFOs were annihilated by the army of anti-aircraft crawlers, the rhythm of this attack was finally interrupted, and no Yuri troops came to attack for a while. The 4 major field groups finally had a chance to rest, and the 2 major bases also seized this opportunity and quickly built many defensive buildings on the defense line, and even built walls around the edges of the positions. Subsequently, 2 combat laboratories were erected in the base. Soon after, the Allied nuclear reactor was built, and the Allied spy satellites were also established. Swish. When the satellite signal appeared, the electronic map of the entire Baiguan war zone expanded in an instant, and all corners were fully displayed on the map. Even the locations of the 5 Yuri bases and psychic beacons were fully displayed. Exposed. Nearly half of the Baiguan war zone is desert, and the other side is an oasis area composed of several border towns. The 5 Yuri bases are stationed in 5 border towns, surrounding the central a psychic beacon built in an open area. This general position is no different from the distribution in Wang Ling's impression. Since this war zone was captured, the Seoul Empire has not changed its defense positions. Of course, although it is a war zone that has been captured, after all, in order to protect the spiritual beacon, the strength of these 5 bases is not small, no less than the bases in other war zones. The 5 Yuri bases are lined up in order to regain this war zone. The difficulty is not small. Different from the northern Icefield war zone, there are relatively few mines in the Baiguan war zone. There are some small mines in the desert and oasis areas, but there are only a few large mines at the junction of the desert area and the oasis area. There are no gem mines. The 5 major bases do not expect these mines to support them, and in total there are only a dozen slave mines operating sporadically. However, there are quite a lot of oil production plants here. There are more than 20 of them in total. They are distributed in the desert area and the oasis area. There are even 2 high-tech airports, which are evenly occupied by the 5 Yuri bases. It seems that because the war zone has been occupied, the areas near these oil production plants are bare, without any defensive buildings or troops, and they are very easy to be attacked by sneak attacks. Wang Ling just glanced at the electronic map and focused on these oil production plants. "Is this obviously asking me to gain experience?" Wang Ling smiled evilly, and he had already made up his mind. However, the base is not very stable now. Although the 5 Yuri bases were hurt in the previous battle, they did not give up. The rear base still assembled 2 groups of troops and launched an attack on the 2 armies. Now they are approaching here. Naturally, it was impossible for these 2 batches of Yuri troops to overwhelm the 2 camp bases. However, in order to reduce the number of casualties, Wang Ling still assisted the base and wiped out both batches of Yuri troops. Afterwards, after the base rebuilt a number of defensive buildings and all were confirmed, Wang Ling greeted General Li Wiki and went to gain experience. However, before those oil production plants, Wang Ling took the lead in visiting those large mines, using old methods to wipe out all the Yuri troops and even the slave mines there, before turning around and moving through time and space to next to a nearby occupied oil production plant. Direct control over time and space was carried out. It's not like Wang Ling hasn't thought about occupying these oil production plants, but in fact the two bases are not really needed. After all, General Li Wiki's base is an old battle base. In the past, many oil production plants were occupied on the battlefield, and crude oil was continuously transported. Others became poorer with more attacks, but they became richer and richer because of the oil production plants. As for Tanya, there is no need to worry. As a hero of the Allied forces, her base is funded by the Allied forces headquarters, so she doesn't have to worry about it. Relatively speaking, Wang Ling's military experience was more important. Without this concern, and there were no defensive forces near all the oil production plants, it was not easy to gain experience. One after another, he gained 6 of them in a short period of time. The oil production plant was the main source of funding for the 5 major Yuri bases. After so many of them were wiped out one after another, the Yuri troops finally felt pain and quickly dispatched troops to guard the remaining oil production plants, and also built many defensive buildings. However, instead of embarrassing Wang Ling, this made Wang Ling even more happy. He saw all the troops in place and the defensive buildings standing tall. Then he gained experience along with these troops and buildings, and built 5 more oil production buildings in succession. After finding the factory and the troops stationed nearby, Wang Ling finally heard a buzz in his mind, and a huge amount of experience in the military types began to be poured into him. The military level of his Super Time Legionnaire finally broke through to the level of the 10-star Soldier King. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 922. While in the Northern War Zone, Wang Ling's Chrono Legion soldiers had already been promoted to the 7-star Ace level, and they had continued to gain a lot of experience and had sufficient foundation. Now after so many brushes in succession, the breakthrough is finally a matter of course. Buzz. This breakthrough is a breakthrough towards the strongest Soldier King level. The instilled memory of military training is even greater, and the body and equipment are also strengthening and changing accordingly. Different from the previous enhancements, this time's enhancement is somewhat similar to the changes of the Ace level Magnetic Blast Infantry. The enhanced Super Time Legionnaire equipment is like a flow of information, poured into Wang Ling's body arrogantly. Changes were brewing in his body. This process should have been very painful, but Wang Ling's current physical condition was so abnormal that he suppressed the pain, only feeling a little numb. This state lasted for a long time, much longer than the previous upgrades from 1 star to 7 stars combined, and the degree of transformation was relatively large. While on the way, Wang Ling couldn't help but close his eyes, and his mind fell into an ethereal state. In his subconscious, a dark spatial image seemed to appear. This spatial image was very vast and empty, just like the darkness of the universe. However, in the darkness, there are dots of light connecting, illuminating some areas. With the help of these lights, we can see that there are many soldiers, tanks, and even many buildings from the Red Alert world floating in this dark space. As the space sways, you can even see some continent-like areas floating in the dark space. On the continent, there are more or less troops stationed, most of them are coalition troops, and there are even more. Many of Yuri's troops are facing each other, and the scene is very strange. This was the first time Wang Ling had seen this space, but in his ethereal state, he could feel a bit familiar with it, as if he had some special connection with his Hyperspace Legion troops. These images appeared suddenly, lasted for a period of time, and then disappeared. Wang Ling also woke up from that ethereal state. At this time, the infusion of his military experience had ended, and the numbness in his body lasted for a while and then ended. The strengthening of the soldiers of the Chrono Legion to the King of Soldiers level has finally been completed. Zheng. The moment he opened his eyes, Wang Ling's eyes seemed to reveal some sparkle, which was very shining. After this strengthening, Wang Ling changed a lot. However, after returning to normal, Wang Ling was not in a hurry to experience this king-level superdimensional legion soldier. Instead, he frowned and thought about what he saw. A space. The space he saw when he was strengthening was probably not something he imagined out of thin air, and it might have some connection with him. Thinking of the troops he saw in that dark space, Wang Ling squinted his eyes and thought for a while, and finally got the answer. That's where all the troops that were wiped out by the Chrono Legion soldiers went, right? That's right, I guess that's the answer. The Chrono Legionnaire is a very special unit. Not only does it move in a strange way, but its attacks are also very strange. It will not kill the target directly, but will move it to another space world through time and space. For this red alert world, the target is dead, but for the target being attacked, it is like a different space. In that space, there is life and death, but if nothing unexpected happens, I may never come back. Super time and space. Hee, this is the first time I have seen the place where the erased troops went. I have learned a lot. After thinking about it, Wang Ling was also quite surprised. However, regardless of whether those troops are dead or alive, they can't come back. For this space in the red alert world, they are dead and don't need to pay too much attention. After leaving all this behind, Wang Ling felt a burst of ecstasy in his heart, because he found some very interesting functions in those infused memories. First of all, Wang Ling directly transformed into an elite combat soldier. Maintaining this state, he actually moved across time and space to 100 meters away with a swish without any physical discomfort. When moving through time and space, the Chrono Legionnaires must wear special equipment to help move while also counteracting the tearing field on the body. Before the 10-star ace, Wang Ling also had to do the same. However, the enhancement of the 10-star Soldier King has implanted the function of the equipment into Wang Ling's body. Even if Wang Ling does not specifically transform into a Chrono Legion soldier, he can still use chrono movement at any time while maintaining the status of other soldiers. This change may sound a bit useless, but in fact, this change is very convenient for combat, and even the short time for changing arms can be ignored. Of course, the most important thing is that after the 10-star Soldier King, this troop ability will be fed back to the real world. In other words, in the real world now, Wang Ling has also mastered the ability to move through time and space. However, under normal circumstances, Wang Ling still needs to wear the special equipment to move across time and space, but now after the change, he has got rid of this constraint. As long as conditions permit, he can move however he wants. It's not too convenient when you think about it. Ha ha ha, this kind of feedback is not bad. After trying this change, Wang Ling smiled very proudly. Whizzing. Of course, the strengthening of the 10-star Soldier King was far more than that. After containing the ecstasy, Wang Ling continued to move across time and space one after another, calculating the stiff time of each move. The final conclusion made Wang Ling beam with joy. This enhancement greatly shortened the stiffness time after each movement. Preliminary estimates indicate that this time the stiffness time has dropped sharply by about 40% from the original level, to only 10% of what it was at the beginning as a 1-star veteran. What is this concept? Back then, it was almost a full day's drive on an anti-aircraft track vehicle from the coalition headquarters to the Biwanshan Theater. It would take veteran-level soldiers of the Chrono Corps nearly an hour to spend the stiff time of traveling through time and space. But now, it only takes about 6 minutes. Darling, it's been a whole day's drive. After traveling through time and space, 6 minutes will be enough for him to return to normal. If this were in the Baiguan war zone, it would probably only take 5 or 6 seconds, maybe even less, to return to normal by moving from one end to the other end of time and space. This change in stiff time really gave Wang Ling a big surprise. Ha ha ha, it's great. Such a short period of stiffness and a more flexible fighting method. Yuri, I feel scared for you. After being strengthened to this point, Wang Ling couldn't help but squeal. However, this is still not all of this enhancement. After the fuss, Wang Ling checked a newly acquired skill from his memory. Different dimension red alert world. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 923. Different from the Soldier King level enhancements of other arms, Wang Ling has now been injected with advanced enhancements. His physical fitness has been greatly enhanced, and his control ability has also increased. Coupled with his powerful mental strength, Wang Ling has been strengthened in this Soldier King level enhancement. At this time, by mistake, he actually acquired a brand new skill. After checking the skill in his memory, Wang Ling gradually grinned, smiling a little silly. Whoosh! In order to test this skill, Wang Ling specially moved back to the coalition base through time and space. After 2 seconds, he returned to normal and shouted slightly excitedly, "Big Tiger, 2 donkeys. Bring a few more brothers and come here." After saying that, Wang Ling chose an open place to wait alone. Sun Dehui didn't know what Wang Ling's intention was, but he still picked a few people honestly, and a group of 5 people found Wang Ling. "Team leader, what are you doing again? What kind of medicine are you selling in your gourd?" The group of people were puzzled, but Wang Ling just smiled brightly and did not answer, but suddenly released a layer of rich super time and space fluctuations from his body, wrapping all 5 people in it, and then, whoosh! The time travel was activated, and the group of people appeared in the mine at the junction of the desert and the oasis in an instant. That's right, this latest skill is that you can carry others with you to move through time and space. The effect is almost the same as the allied super weapon time and space teleportation. The only difference is that time and space teleportation can only teleport armored troops, but Wang Ling can bring infantry with him. Naturally, because Wang Ling is the one who initiates the teleportation, all the tearing power must be borne by Wang Ling. However, Wang Ling's current physical fitness is really abnormal. With only 5 people, he can almost resist the tearing power. And there is no strange feeling. Including Wang Ling, a group of 6 people arrived at their destination. Everyone froze for less than 3 seconds before returning to normal. Looking at his results, Wang Ling felt even more joyful, but Sun Dehui and the other 5 were dumbfounded. They looked at each other for a long time before they recovered, and then they all became ecstatic. "Oh my god! We were still at the base just now, right? Travel through time and space. Ha ha ha, this is movement through time and space. We can also move through time and space. Team leader, you are really getting more and more perverted." These people were strengthened at the intermediate level relatively early, and there were no Chrono Legion soldiers when the arms were switched. This was Wang Ling's passive experience of chrono movement, which was not to mention how exciting it was. Of course, they also knew that ordinary Chrono Legion soldiers did not have this ability, but Wang Ling suddenly showed it. It was obvious that this cheap team leader was stronger than before. Come again, it's a free trip." After the ecstasy, Sun Dehui pestered Wang Ling and continued to move through time and space. After all, doing it just once would not be fun enough. Whoosh! Wang Ling did not refuse. In fact, he himself also wanted to test this skill, so he directly released the time-space fluctuation circle and moved the 5 people directly to the rear of the Baiguan war zone, next to a Yuri base. After nearly 3 seconds, it returned to normal. Looking at Yuri's base not far away, Sun Dehui and others were happy, but at the same time they were shocked. "Damn, team leader, why did you bring us here?" Buzzing. While they were talking, more than 10 laser UFOs from behind the base finally came to their senses and rushed towards them. Whoosh! Wang Ling did not go to fight them head-on, and then took Sun Dehu and the other 5 people directly back to the base with a time travel movement. After about 6 seconds, he returned to his stiffness. Oh! Having had this momentary long-distance travel experience, the 5 of us still feel a little dazed. Others looked on, not to mention envious. Even General Li Wiki was alerted and walked out of the command post in person, with a look of surprise on his face. "Wang Ling, you're soldier of the Chrono Space Corps." Wang Ling said happily, "General, your abilities have been improved again, the stiffness time has been shortened, and you don't have to wear Legionnaire equipment. You can also move through time and space with others." In fact, his attack frequency was also strengthened. However, before he used the time-space light wave attack, it was purely to gain experience. Now that the level has reached the highest level, the time-space light wave attack was already a bit useless to Wang Ling, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. After hearing this, General Li Wiki was surprised and asked, "How many infantry can you carry in one breath? Can the armored troops be carried?" The commander's way of thinking is really different from others, and he immediately got to the point. Wang Ling replied in a deep voice, "General, I'm not too sure, I'm still in the trial stage." "Okay, then keep trying." "Yes, General." After obtaining permission, Wang Ling called 10 infantrymen in one breath and continued his previous attempt. The 10 infantrymen were moved through time and space to the junction of the desert and oasis, and then moved back through time and space. Counting the stiff time before and after, it did not exceed 10 seconds. In these 10 seconds, due to the surge in the number of people carrying him, Wang Ling also felt some tearing, but it was not too obvious and far from the level that could hurt him. So he continued with 20 infantrymen, and then 30 infantrymen. When carrying 20 infantrymen, the tearing feeling doubled, but Wang Ling could still bear it easily without getting hurt. But when he was carrying 30 infantrymen, he went back and forth, and many dense cracks appeared on his body, as if the ceramic was broken. It seems that Wang Ling's current physical ability to carry 30 infantrymen across time and space in one breath has reached a critical point. As for the injured body, after all, the injury was not too serious. Wang Ling just took a short rest and recovered on his own. After this test value appeared, both Wang Ling and General Li Wiki were extremely happy. With this ability, they can carry 30 infantrymen to move through time and space in one breath. If the plan is proper, it can really catch the enemy off guard. This is just Wang Ling's normal body form. If he changes to the form of the Wild Beast King, the number of infantry he can carry will probably be even more. After experimenting with the number of infantry, Wang Ling turned to try armored units. Even though the Allies' chrono teleportation can easily teleport armored units, it is a super weapon of a major force. Wang Ling is just a single individual, and he needs to bear all the tearing power personally. The risks of this experiment are not high. It's small. For this reason, Wang Ling tried to be on the safe side by starting from an anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. It moved easily without any problems. Then there were 2, then 3, and when the number reached 5, tiny cracks appeared on the surface of Wang Ling's body. Subsequently, Wang Ling successively conducted experiments with Rhino tanks, Apocalypse tanks, and even deployed armed helicopters. The results showed that the larger the size of these armored units, the smaller the number they could carry, such as Apocalypse tanks and armed helicopters. The maximum number can only be 3 vehicles. After the normal form test, Wang Ling tried the Wild Beast King form again. In this form, Wang Ling's physical strength increased by leaps and bounds. As a result, during the test, the number of tanks he could carry was doubled. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 924. Whoosh. With the last time travel movement, Wang Ling brought 3 Apocalypse tanks and 3 armed helicopters in deployment form back to the base from the rear of the Bagwan Theater. The test was finally over. In this new skill, the number of troops that can be carried at a time is limited, and the entire army cannot move on a large scale. However, this is accomplished by Wang Ling's ability alone. It is an unexpected surprise to achieve such results. Moreover, Wang Ling's skill itself is not expected to help the entire army move on a large scale. At best, it can only be designed to sneak attack the enemy in groups. If the design is cunning enough, it may be able to cause a considerable blow to an enemy base. Ha ha ha, okay, 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 General Li Wiki excitedly shouted 3 times in a row. After Wang Ling returned to his stiff state, the cracked injuries on his body quickly recovered, and at the same time he returned to his normal human form from the Wild Beast King form. The form of the Wild Beast King is indeed very powerful. Taking the Apocalypse tank as an example, Wang Ling can only move 3 tanks at a time in his normal form, but in the Wild Beast King form, he can move twice as many. Of course, with this quantity, Wang Ling was only slightly injured. If Wang Ling paid the price of serious injuries, he might be able to carry more troops. However, there is really no need to do this unless there is a last resort, and Wang Ling does not want to seriously injure himself because of this skill. The breathing effect is good. After a little adaptation, Wang Ling also let out a sigh of relief. Not only is it good, it's so convenient, Zhao Pingwang said happily. But Sun Dehua, with his 2 donkeys and a group of infantrymen, started to make noise. Team leader, don't be idle, keep going, we want to keep trying. Yeah, we haven't had enough fun yet, let's do it again. Team leader, please do it a few more times. Go away, do you think this is a joke? Several black lines fell on Wang Ling's head, and he really scolded the group of people before they stopped. The experiment has come to an end with the data results. Although this skill is convenient, it still depends on how to use it. In this regard, both Wang Ling and General Li Wiki are in contact for the first time, and they have not yet developed any good strategies and tactics. It still takes a long time to get used to it. However, there is no time to try too much now. The coalition forces are stepping up the construction of combat bunkers and anti-aircraft tracked vehicles. The Allies are also building crack generators and preparing armored units for combat. After all, the electronic map shows that the Seoul Empire's superweapon gene mutation is already ready. With a specialized strategy, this gene mutation is much less threatening than Psychic Storm, and all the infantry only need to be hidden. In this regard, the bases of the 2 armies have very rich experience. After more than a dozen combat bunkers were built, the infantry of the 2 armies were urgently allocated. Some of them got into the combat bunkers, and some entered the armored units such as anti-aircraft crawlers and helicopters. They were ready to escape. Gene mutation. But Wang Ling is an anomaly. Although this guy is an infantryman, he is already a wild beast king. He doesn't pay attention to genetic mutation at all. Others avoid him, but he moves very freely, and even if you don't hide under the crack generator, you are being unscrupulous. When he was alone, Wang Ling was actually thinking about the wonderful use of this Warrior King level Super Space Legion soldier. He transformed into the Beast King form, while holding the elite combat soldier's rifle. The other hand picked up the SEAL team. The bomb moves randomly across time and space, and from time to time it releases some electromagnetic current to manipulate the mental fluctuations. In his current state, he can put together as many troops and abilities as possible, trying to find a more powerful attack method. In fact, this method does exist. In the game, Allied spies can invade the enemy's combat laboratory and steal ultra-modern military technology. Among these military technologies, there is a unique military type, which combines the Super Space Legion soldiers and the Navy SEALs, called the Super Space Commando. As the name suggests, the SEALs actually have the ability to move through time and space. The combination of these two arms, when used properly, is really terrifying. Although it is expensive to build, once the quantity is really accumulated, it will be very exciting to move to the enemy's base through time and space, and blast the entire enemy base at the speed of time and space movement. However, the cost of doing so was too high, and the number of casualties during the bombing was simply uncontrollable. What Wang Ling is thinking of now is actually this type of time travel commando team. Wang Ling already has them all, whether they are Chrono Legion soldiers or Navy SEALs, and they have all been upgraded to the level of 10-star soldier kings. They are also equipped with several types of powerful arms. Not only can they also attack in the same way as the Chrono Commandos, and can even do more ruthlessly. However, Wang Ling could not ignore the price that the Super Dimension Commando had to pay. This was a game world after all, and Wang Ling did not want to put himself in danger just for the sake of temporary pleasure. What else can be done? This is a question that deserves careful consideration. Buzz. Swish. Just when I was thinking of this, unexpectedly, the countdown to the gene mutation of the Mind Empire was completed, and it was released almost immediately, and the target turned out to be Wang Ling. Under the strong influence of this gene mutation, Wang Ling's Wild Beast King form, which was originally of normal height proportions, unexpectedly grew uncontrollably to a height of 3 meters, breaking all of his clothes. Of course, this is limited to this. Genetic mutation can mutate all infantrymen into wild beasts without distinction, and they can be bewitched and served by the Empire of the Heart. However, Wang Ling himself is already the Wild Beast King, and he has absolute control over this mutation. Immunity, and has a spiritual power second only to Yuri, which is uncontrollable. As a result, this gene mutation took several days to be ready, but it released a lonely person. It wasn't all useless, at least it embarrassed Wang Ling. What was exposed made Agent Tanya close her eyes and curse, "Wang Ling, you pervert, change your clothes quickly." Wang Ling was at a loss for words. He quickly shrank his body and returned to his normal form. He then changed his arms twice in succession and put on his clothes again using the rules of the system. Then he pointed in the direction of Yuri's base and cursed, "What the hell are you doing, sick? How many days did it take to get ready? Release a ball on me? It's your uncle's fault." Many soldiers and generals who have experienced hundreds of battles are a bit gangster. After staying in the red alert world for so long, Wang Ling, who used to use very civilized language, has become accustomed to swearing, and he is getting more and more comfortable with it. He couldn't directly criticize Tanya, so he had no choice but to scold the Mind Empire. No matter whether the Mind Empire could hear it or not, at least he would curse her heartily first. But just after finishing his curse, Wang Ling suddenly realized, that's right, a super weapon. Ha ha ha, before he could even finish the next sentence. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 925. One moment he was scolding in annoyance, and the next moment he suddenly started to giggle again. The change was so sudden that he was like a psychopath. Agent Tanya was paying attention to him all the time. At this time, she couldn't help but said, "Hey, Wang Ling, are you crazy? You have been an exhibitionist for a while, look at you." Originally still giggling, Wang Ling's laughter stopped abruptly at this rebuke, and he suppressed a blush. "Tch, look at you." After replying, Wang Ling turned around and suddenly came to Li Wiki's command post. He said slightly excitedly, "I thought of the hardest way to attack the soldiers of the Super Dimension Legion." "In what way?" Wang Ling told Li Wiki exactly what he thought, but after hearing this, he hesitated. "Wang Ling, is this reliable? That is a super weapon. The field is so strong that infantry cannot bear it." Wang Ling, however, didn't care. "Don't worry, the Allied forces' time and space teleportation is also a super weapon. I could withstand it before, but now it is stronger. The Allied forces' super weapons should not be able to hurt me. Okay, you go out first, I will report to the boss and listen to his opinion. Yes. After conveying his thoughts, Wang Ling moved through time and space and left the command post. In the base, after the gene mutation ended, the infantrymen also relaxed and started to move out of various armored units. Wang Ling also mixed in with the team and did not move for a while. At present, he still has one rocket pilot whose soldier level has not been upgraded to the top level, but he has just filled up the Space-Time Legion soldiers, and he does not want to rush to the next soldier category, which is too tiring. What's more, Wang Ling's latest strategic ideas still need to be put into practice. Li Weiqi's communication efficiency was also quite high. Wang Ling got the result not long after waiting outside. Wang Ling, I have agreed. There is only less than half a day left before the Iron Curtain device is ready. Please be patient, get ready. Yes. Wang Ling was delighted when he heard this. He quickly assigned 6 elite-level Apocalypse tanks and took up positions together, waiting for the coalition super weapon Iron Curtain device to be ready. During this period, the Yuri base also launched attacks here, but each time it was a small-scale attack with the intention of just harassing them. Each time, it was quickly repulsed and failed to damage the bases of the two armies. After waiting for nearly half a day, the countdown to the Iron Curtain device on the electronic map finally ended. Okay, I'm just waiting for you. All Apocalypse tanks, get ready. Whoosh. After the 6 elite Apocalypse tanks shook their barrels to indicate that they were ready, Wang Ling transformed into the Beast King form and took the 6 Apocalypse tanks to move directly to the edge of a small town through time and space, and secured the Yuri base inside. Iron Curtain device, release. Wang Ling, do it to your heart's content. After they were in place, PoortoRich's voice even came directly from the radio. At the same time, a strong field energy emerged, completely wrapping Wang Ling and the 6 Apocalypse tanks, forming a layer of even Wang Ling was covered in a black protective shield. Iron Curtain device, released. This kind of super weapon is actually the same as the Allied forces' time and space teleportation. The infantry cannot withstand this field at all. However, Wang Ling can easily resist with his advanced enhancement and the body of the Wild Beast King. Like a humanoid armored monster, he is covered in fight with this protective shield. Okay. This is the effect. With the Iron Curtain device in his possession, Wang Ling felt extremely arrogant. After shouting, he once again released a hyperspace fluctuation circle and led 6 Apocalypse tanks directly into the target Yuri base. In Yuri's base, there were suddenly so many uninvited guests, which shocked the entire army. The surrounding defenders began to counterattack almost immediately. Choo choo choo. Boom boom boom. Da da da. Under Wang Ling's deliberate movement, the area they were in happened to be the area with the highest concentration of soldiers and tanks in the base. All of a sudden, many Yuri recruits, tornado tanks, and get cannons all opened fire to counterattack Wang Ling. 6 tanks and even virus snipers were engaged in a cold war in the distance. The orcs also hammered the Apocalypse tank, and the laser UFO in the sky also concentrated their fire to bombard Wang Ling. If this formation were in a normal state, no matter how strong Wang Ling was, no matter how tough the Apocalypse tank was, they would probably be smashed to pieces. However, under the Iron Curtain device, their appearance was coated with a black protective shield. All attacks that hit this protective shield were like a mud cow entering the sea, without causing any waves or causing any damage. Wang Ling and Apocalypse tank have nothing to lose. Not only these attacking troops, but several magneto-electric tanks in Yuri's base also tried to absorb the Apocalypse tank from a long distance. However, under the protective cover, the magnetic waves could not be projected at all and could not be absorbed. The mental control vehicle and the psychic troops also tried to control the Apocalypse tank, but the mental power connection also could not penetrate the black protective shield. This is the power of the coalition's super weapons. Nuclear bomb attack pursues super destructive power in an instant, while Iron Curtain device seeks absolute defense within a certain period of time. During this effective time, under the protective shield, you are immune to all attacks. As for the amount of time, different game versions also have different regulations. In this red alert world, the effective time of the Iron Curtain device is 45 seconds. It's not a long time, but for Wang Ling, it's enough. Whoosh. Boom. Whoosh. Boom. After withstanding the attack for less than 2 seconds, Wang Ling and the 6 elite Apocalypse tanks also ended their stiff time. Wang Ling seized the time and moved directly through time and space, blowing up the tank factory in Yuri's base, followed by another move through time and space, arrive at the command post, and drop a bomb to blow it up instantly. These two major productivity buildings exploded, and half of the entire Yuri base seemed to be paralyzed. Yes, this is the strategy Wang Ling had in mind. The collective bombing of the Super Dimension Commandos was certainly terrifying, but during the bombing, the enemy was also counter-attacking all the time, and the losses were too high to bear. However, Wang Ling had all the Iron Curtain devices attached to his body, making him immune to all attacks during the attack. Moreover, the freezing time after each movement is 90% shorter than that of an ordinary chrono commando. Under these conditions, Wang Ling is simply a land-based god of death, and the damage he can cause to the enemy base is simply devastating.